Okay, so here are some new or updated setup thoughts on my Kyosho Lazer ZX6. I've been racing this buggy now for about 2 months or so. So I haven't been running it quite long enough to do a proper midterm review. I mean, so far everything's running fine. But each weekend I try to make I end up having to make little setup tweaks here and there to get the car to drive the way I want it to. And I'm getting closer to what I think is a good setup for me personally on the tracks that I race on. So in the previous setup video, I talked about how there's too much steering in the buggy and how I took out some Ackerman by adding a spacer here, I think a 1 millimeter spacer behind this ball stud here. And that, for the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. But then eventually I realized that the car was actually pushing mid-corner compared to some of the other cars that I normally can keep up with. So, okay, back to the drawing board. Got to figure out how to get more steering out of the car rather than take steering out. So I went back to the stock setting for Ackerman, which is 0 spacers here behind this ball stud. So that helped a little bit. I also, some of this I may have talked about in the first video, can't quite remember. I also dropped the front roll center, I believe, by adding a spacer, a 2 millimeter spacer here under this inner ball stud. And in addition to dropping the front roll center, I also increased the front camber gain. So I went from the inside hole to the outside hole here. Maybe you can see it, if you can't. I'm on that outside hole right there on the bulkhead, okay? So those two things combined will help the car roll more, and it'll also give me more cornering grip mid-corner. So those things helped, but I was still a little bit lacking in total steering, especially low-speed corners. So what I ended up doing also is taking out these 7-degree caster blocks and inserting the 10-degree caster blocks that also come with the kit. More caster, if you go and check out my setup tutorial videos, caster will give you basically a little bit more camber as the wheel turns more at a higher angle. So the higher your turning angle, the more the wheel kind of cambers over during cornering. So so those things combined helped a little bit. So I was basically playing around with the front to try to get more steering, and all of these things helped. But then what I remembered actually is on my B44 and also on my Lazer ZX5 when I used to have that buggy, increasing the rear camber gain also makes a very significant difference in how the car handles. So generally speaking, you'd actually want the rear camber link to be relatively long so that on corner exit, the rear wheels are kind of flat, and as the car squats down, you're not getting too much camber rise, and you have plenty of rear grip so the car's not squirrely on corner exit. But what you can do is increase the rear camber gain, and mid-corner the car just darts right around the corner like it's on rails. But you tend to pay the price of the car being a little bit looser on corner exit. So I figured, I would take that risk with this car when I was running it earlier today, because I qualified towards the back of the A main, so I figured, okay, I don't have much to lose. So I basically just took the ball stud on the rear hub carrier and moved it to the inside hole, as you can see right there, okay? So I'm on the inside hole on that ball stud, and on the ball stud on the actual bulkhead, I have a 1 millimeter spacer there, also on the center hole, on the inside hole. So this is the stock hole setting, but with it's moved up 1 millimeter, and then I also moved this ball stud to the inside. So this has a bit more rear camber gain. This helped a lot. This actually helped more with mid-corner steering than the roll center and camber gain adjustments I made up here. So with this setting, and I think I have 35 weight front oil, 30 weight rear oil, 22 millimeter ride height front and rear, the car was much easier to navigate around low speed, tight hairpins. There are two, there's one hairpin in particular on the layout I was racing at, where there's a double and then a double, and right off that last double there's a really tight hairpin, and I was having trouble. The car was really pushing around there. Once I increased the rear camber gain, I had a lot more flexibility to maneuver the car around that turn. I had a larger variety of lines that I could take, so that helped a lot. What I did notice, I don't have too much steering, at least not for my driving style, but I think what ended up happening is I will have to go back and change some of the front settings. Is on corner exit going into, there's a particular exit that as you exit the corner, it's a tight turn, and then it exits going downhill a little bit. And the inside, you're turning right, and as you exit turning right, and then you're going straight, the inside wheel was starting to balloon as I got on the throttle too early. And I think what was happening is the front was rolling too much, and it hadn't settled back, and so this wheel wasn't really grabbing the track. So I may actually have to go back here and increase the front roll center, because it's lower now, so I have to pull it back up to keep the front from rolling too much. I may lose a little bit of steering from that. We'll have to see. But other than that problem I was having on one specific part of the track, this setup as it exists, I think is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's, I think, significantly better than the stock setup. The stock setup is, it does give you a lot of steering, but it does so in a way that makes the rear end very loose. And so you have to actually play games with the rear roll center to sort of calm down the rear, and then you could play games with the front of the car to get it to steer more or less depending on what you want. Okay, so this is where I am right now with setup. It's not my final setup. I'm still working towards something that's continually better, but I think this is certainly better than the kit setup that I started using with the car. Okay, so I hope this is helpful to you, and if you have any questions, please let me know, and thanks for watching.